On the evening of May 7, 2025, something unusual happened just outside Richmond, Virginia. A minor seismic tremor, barely noticeable to most, was picked up by a monitoring station over a mile from the local stadium. It wasn't an earthquake. Not exactly. It was caused by nearly 60,000 people jumping in unison during a Metallica concert. The press quickly dubbed it the Metallica quake. But for one man in the crowd, 68-year-old Thomas Callahan, that rumble in the ground meant something much more personal. It marked the end of a promise he'd made to himself over 3 decades ago and finally kept. He wasn't there just for the music. He was chasing a memory. One tied to a ticket he never used, a song that never stopped echoing, and a moment in time he thought was long gone. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. Thomas Callahan lived a quiet life in Chesterfield County, just south of Richmond. Retired from 35 years in the Postal Service, his days now moved at a slower rhythm: early coffee on the porch, crossword puzzles, weekend trips to the hardware store, and the occasional lunch with old coworkers. His house, the same modest brick ranch he bought in '88, echoed with the soft hum of classic rock playing from a dusty radio in the kitchen. He wasn't lonely, his daughters visited often, and the grandkids brought noise and joy, but something inside felt paused, like a song waiting to finish its last note. One afternoon, while cleaning out the garage, he stumbled upon an old shoebox. Inside, faded photos, receipts, and a crumpled Metallica ticket from 1993. He smiled. That concert, the one he missed the night his first child was born. He'd always meant to see them someday. Maybe someday had finally come. A few days after finding that old ticket, Thomas was out for his usual morning walk when he overheard 2 teenagers talking near the convenience store. "Metallica's playing May 7th, stadium show, gonna be huge," one of them said. Thomas stopped mid-step. "Metallica? Here? After all these years?" Back home, he checked online. Sure enough, they were coming to Virginia. The same band, the same thunderous sound that once rattled his car speakers in the early 90s. He sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. A strange feeling stirred, part nostalgia, part urgency. He had the time now. The freedom. And maybe, just maybe, he had something to finish. Still, something tugged at him. At his age, did people even do things like this anymore? Was he chasing a memory that had long since faded, or was there something waiting for him at that concert he didn't yet understand? In the days leading up to the concert, Thomas started noticing little things that unsettled him. First, it was the ticket website, completely sold out. Then, at the barbershop, someone mentioned how the whole city was bracing for traffic like they hadn't seen in years. Even his youngest daughter called to ask, half-jokingly, if he was really planning to go to that loud metal thing. He laughed it off, but her words stuck. That night, while brushing his teeth, he caught his reflection and hesitated. Was he too old for this? The noise, the crowd, the late night, it all felt unfamiliar now. And yet, each time he tried to push the thought away, he found himself humming those old riffs under his breath. Something inside him, quiet for so long, was beginning to wake up. But he didn't know yet what it wanted or what it might cost to listen. 2 days before the show, Thomas got a call from his old friend Ray, someone he hadn't spoken to in over a decade. "Heard Metallica's coming. Still got the ticket you never used." Ray chuckled, but then added, "I've got 2 for Wednesday. Front section. You in?" Thomas felt a sudden jolt, part disbelief, part something deeper. That unused ticket from '93 had been a running joke between them for years. Now, after all this time, it felt like a door swinging back open. He hesitated, but only for a moment. "I'm in," he said. That night, he pulled out an old Metallica shirt from a storage bin, faded, soft, but still intact. As he held it up to the light, he didn't see a relic of youth. He saw a second chance. The world hadn't given him this moment, it had waited for him to be ready to claim it. The night before the concert, Thomas was watching the local news when a segment caught his attention. Officials were issuing crowd advisories, not just for traffic, but for potential structural impact. "Seismic sensors will be on alert," the reporter said. At Metallica's 2011 Chile concert, crowd movement registered as a minor earthquake. Virginia's geology is sensitive. "We're monitoring for any similar activity." Thomas stared at the screen, unsettled. This wasn't just a concert anymore. Something about it felt bigger, more unpredictable. He thought of the old stadium, of thousands of bodies moving as one, of the shaking ground. Was it safe? Should he even go? But beneath his worry was a flicker of something else, responsibility. He'd made a choice to show up, not just for the music, but for a part of himself he'd buried for too long. Now, as the world seemed to rumble around him, he wasn't sure if he was stepping into joy or chaos. When Thomas and Ray arrived at the stadium, the roar of the crowd hit them like a wave. Tens of thousands of fans filled every seat, every corner, the air electric with anticipation. But as they neared the gate, an announcement crackled through the speakers. Entry was being paused. Officials were inspecting the lower stands after sensors detected minor structural vibration during the opening act's sound check. People grumbled, some laughed nervously, but Thomas felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Ray glanced at him. "We could turn back," he offered, half serious. Thomas looked around, at the sea of strangers, at the sky darkening above, at the pulse in his chest that hadn't beat this hard in years. "No," he said quietly. "I missed it once. I'm not missing it again." But as they finally stepped through the gates, the ground itself felt like it was holding its breath. What would happen when the music finally hit? Halfway through the concert, just as Metallica launched into Master of Puppets, the ground began to tremble. At first, Thomas thought it was just the bass. But then the giant video screens flickered, and for a brief second, the crowd seemed to sway too much. Security moved in quickly, directing people in the lower stands to shift toward the outer aisles. Thomas and Ray were among them. For a few tense minutes, everything slowed. The music cut out. People looked around, confused, anxious. Some started leaving. Thomas felt the weight of it all, his age, the risk, the decades of waiting for what? Had he made a mistake? But then, unexpectedly, the lights returned. A voice boomed over the speakers. "We're all good. Let's keep this going safe and strong." The crowd erupted. Thomas looked at Ray, who just grinned. The music resumed. And in that moment, standing beneath the Virginia night sky, Thomas felt something settle. He'd made it. As the final notes of Nothing Else Matters echoed across the stadium, Thomas stood still, his hands resting on the railing, eyes glistening. Around him, thousands of voices sang in unison, not perfectly, but with heart. He wasn't the same man who missed that show in '93. Back then, he gave up a concert to become a father. Tonight, he wasn't making up for lost time, he was honoring it. Every choice, every detour had led him here, to this moment of noise and clarity. He didn't need to reclaim his youth, he needed to remember that it had never truly left him. Ray clapped him on the back as they made their way out. "Worth it?" he asked. Thomas just nodded, smiling quietly. The crowd was still buzzing, but inside, something had gone still in the best way. Peaceful. Whole. In the weeks after the concert, Thomas felt different, not younger, not transformed, just more himself. He found his old records, cleaned off the turntable, and let the music fill the house again. The garage, once just a storage space, became his evening retreat, lit by warm light and familiar sound. He didn't talk much about the concert, but those who knew him noticed the shift, more energy in his step, more presence in his eyes. Sometimes all it takes is one night to remind you that life doesn't pause just because you slow down. It waits for when you're ready to step back in. Have you ever put off something for so long you convinced yourself it no longer mattered until you finally did it? What was it, and was it worth the wait? Let us know in the comments.